Hey everybody, before you continue watching the video, make sure you give the channel a like and subscribe. Go and follow us on Instagram. Go and check out all the different social media scenarios. Make sure if you're enjoying the content, go there, like, subscribe, follow, so we can keep putting stuff out. If you've got any questions, leave a comment. All right, make a comment on either of our pages and we'll answer them as soon as we can.
Makes a lot of sense, and when I learn something, it must make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not going to teach it, because I see the other side of it, and that's not going to work,
Yeah. Something that I do want to talk about is, you just talked about it then with the katas and stuff like that. So most martial arts have some type of movement practice, whether it be katas, whether it be, just head movement for boxing, or certain straight punches or whatever, without somebody else, bag work, whatever. Jiu-jitsu has the same thing in like animal movements and solo drills and stuff like that. When you get like new students in, is that what they all start with?
It was, as I walk in the field, the first thing they learn is tradition side of it, what to do, the courtesy side of it. So once they learn that, then you start from the bottom, is how to make it first,
on a technical level, though, is that something that is focused on for people that are starting the art, or not really?
Yeah. The basic fundamentals of karate.
Yeah.
If they haven't got that foundation, they'll never become a good fighter.
Correct.
So a lot of times when I see their fighting gets a bit sloppy, I stay away from fighting and I go back to the basics, because all their fighting techniques is in the basics or in the kata. So certain moves, we just do it over and over and over and over until they get it right, and we go back to fighting.
That's something that I would like to talk about, because to do with jiu-jitsu, and I've talked about it on some of the BJJ 101 videos and stuff with solo movements and stuff, is if you can't physically perform the postures, the movements, you don't have the mobility to get into certain postures or movements, you're not going to be able to do any techniques. So it's the same thing with like karate. If you can't do the forms of the kata and move your body like this and do this type of kick or do this type of punch without an opponent, how are you going to do that on somebody else? And I think the same for jiu-jitsu. If you can't physically move your body like this, if you can't do certain generic movements, you're not going to be able to apply it on anybody else. So what's the point of doing live training? What's the point of doing sparring with another person combatively if you can't even move correctly?
How long, Petrus, would take you to a student, like a brand new student, to spar, like roughly speaking?
Normally I keep them away from sparring up till about maybe brown belt, so a couple of years.
Without sparring?
Yeah, because
it's not worth it.
They pick up the bad habit. You can't get it out of them, because karate is like a triangle, and each one is equal. So you have to do basics equally. You have to do kata base, and you have to do fighting. The only fighting they do is what we call nomination fighting, where it's controlled. You do basic attack and then basic
simulated kind of.
Yeah, so it's not like free fighting. Because once you do free fighting, if you have a bad foot and your foot facing this all the time instead of this way, when you start fighting, your foot's going to be that way, and you won't be able to do certain techniques, and you're always going to be caught flat-footed until you can get your feet and your posture.
You have to retrain yourself, So that's something that I just want to mention about jiu-jitsu, because in jiu-jitsu that's uncommon to do that. It's uncommon for people to spend a year just doing techniques, just doing drills, just doing animal movements, katas, whatever. They don't do that. All we do, and this is something that Hicks and Gracie's talked about before and stuff as well, is like, we'll do 2 weeks of this and that. All right, go there in the deep end. Go and see what happens. I think that, look, it can work for some people, but for most people, it's such a stressful and uncomfortable situation. You're right. What they do is they start, doing bad habits. They start developing, I'm afraid, I don't want to do that. They get fearful already, so they're not even happy to exchange and stuff like that, and actually like makes people retract into their shell a little bit, and it damages their kind of progression. And I just think it's interesting, that question that you asked is like you guys do for a full 2 years of no sparring or no competitive sparring. I think it's
I agree with you.
And the thing is, if they start sparring early, they get hurt. They don't want to do it no more.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is get your student to get hurt, So our type of fighting we have is what we call Sanbon, Gohan Kumite, Jiu Ippon, and then Jiu Kumite, which is the Jiu, it's a free fighting, everything goes. But all these other ones is all controlled, like
Partial trainings, you would say.
yeah,
like,
so basically you get down in basic stance, you throw a punch and you basically block and counter. Because in that stuff, you learn your main things that make a good fighter, which is your timing, your distance, and your focus. Those are the three main things that make a good fighter. If you can't perfect those things, you never become a good fighter. And those three things, when you do the five basic type of fighting, it filters through to your main fighting.
that's how I learned at the beginning, like for like, instead of putting straight to a full training where, let's say you have like three classes of 4 classes, you don't know many of the puzzle positions that you're going to fall into, so you have no knowledge to perform anything, or totally overwhelming. You do a partial training, so you learn how to pass. You learn how to pass and how to defend guard or one sweep. All right, this is the partial training. Open here and pass here. Both have knowledge. There you go. Because I think what you're saying about the triangle is super interesting. Like, so we're looking at the bottom, which is the biggest part of the triangle. That's where they're going to spend most of their time. And that's where they're going to do most of that technique here with the foundation, correct?
Yeah, so the triangle is equal triangle.
Yeah.
The equal triangle is all equal angled. So they all get trained equally, the amount the same.
It's saying that there's 3 main things you have to focus on, and if you go straight to live sparring or whatever, you're only focusing on one point of the triangle.
So you do, and when I talk about fighting,
see.
they don't fight for 3 or 5 years. They're not physically fighting, but they're doing basic fighting where they nominate, so they can learn. Okay, punches coming to my head, I'm going to have to do this and that, and they get more advanced and they might do shoots and sweep.
But yeah, it's the same as like a positional sparring in jiu-jitsu where you only focus on, all right, it's just passing or sweeping. It's just escaping submissions or submitting them. It's just la 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 la. Yeah.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you give it a like, subscribe, and a follow. Check out all our different social media platforms. There's heaps of content coming out. There's different snippets and content on different platforms. So make sure you're on everything. And again, if it helped you out, recommend to somebody else, and hopefully it'll help them out too.